Connor from BellatorGero.com. Not arrogant, just better. Just going to give my pre-fight predictions on UFC 128, Shogun versus Jones. Yeah, I'm going to start with a few fights which I'm not going to go too much detail into them. I'm going to go with Pellegrino and Gleison Tibau. Gleison Tibau, I think he's going to get this fight. He's going to give Pellegrino his second loss in a row. Only reason I'm going with Tibau is because he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and even though he's a 155 pounder, he's known to come into the ring, or to the cage as such, about 180 pounds, something like that. And I think he's going to be the stronger guy, and I think he's going to have the bigger knockout power. And yeah, that's how I'm going to see that fight going. Pellegrino is going to get beat by Gleison Tibau, and I'm going to go with, let's see, second round submission. Also, I'm going to go with a fight with Ricardo Almeida versus Pyle. I'm going to go with Ricardo Almeida because I think he's got the better ground game, even though Pyle, that's the best bit of his game, his ground game, and he looks really good against the Brit last time he was out. And I'm going to go with Ricardo Almeida, and I think he's going to get this via third round submission. And Edson Barboza, only reason I'm going to go about this guy is because he does not look like a 155er. He's a big guy for 155, and he has some devastating leg kicks. Obviously, because his last two fights, he's won by TKO, where he's just kicked the fuck out of people's legs, and I'm going to say he's going to get this fight won by TKO again. Leg kicks, because I don't believe the Nigerian that he's fighting has got a wrestling, because I think that's going to be the real test for Edson Barboza, is when he fights someone who's got an actual ground game and he gets put on his back, and that's when I think you're going to see the real test for Barboza. And now on to the main card, where we have Jim Miller versus Kamal. Anyways, lightweight division. We've got a wrestler from don't know where, and Jim Miller. I'm going to go Jim Miller because I think he's the better fighter. Because I've never heard of the other guy, and I think he's just one of the people that Jim Miller. He's just waiting. He's waiting to slot into a place for a title shot, because that's what he's waiting for at the end of the day. And I think he's just fighting mishmash opponents just to get there. Because I think he's about maybe third or fourth in, well, let's say fourth in the light heavyweight division in the UFC at the moment. I mean, not the light heavyweight division, lightweight division. Yeah, I'm going to go Jim Miller, and I think he's going to get this fight done by decision. Onto the Bantamweight, and we have Urijah Faber versus Eddie Wineland. I don't really like any fights below 155, to be honest, because I think the guys are too small, and I'm not saying that they're not normal sized guys, it's just that they seem to be midgets. Don't mean that in a bad way, it's just that, like, anywhere from 155 you get guys who are like 5 foot, 5'10" upwards, and I like to see normal sized people fighting instead of smaller guys. I know Urijah Faber is a very good fighter. He's coming off wins and losses. But the only people he's lost to really is pretty much the best, like Mike Brown. I know he's not had the best run in the UFC so far, but Mike Brown's good. And Jose Aldo. Aldo's just, yeah. Aldo. I don't need to say more for Aldo, because Aldo does what he does. And Eddie Winner, Wineland, he's coming off 6 wins, I think it is. Yeah, he's got a pretty good record. I think he's 18-6. And I'm going to give this fight to Urijah Faber, only because Urijah Faber is a bigger name, and he's the poster boy was the poster boy for the WEC, even though he wasn't the best fighter. He was the poster boy though, and yeah, I'm going to go Urijah Faber because I think Dana White would want to throw him a bone just to say, yeah, stay around, because he's coming off the last 5 fights. I think he's coming off 3-2, so no worries. And in the middleweight division, we have a very, very interesting fight with Yoshihiro Akiyama versus Nate Marquardt. Akiyama, he hasn't had the best of runs since he joined the UFC. He beat Alan Belcher who I think is an excellent fighter, and I can't wait for him to fight next. And then he came off a loss against Lieben and then Michael Bisping. Before Akiyama came to the UFC, about 2 years ago, I had him in my top 5 pound-for-pound fighters, because he was, I think he'd only had 1 loss, and that loss, he was fighting, I think, a heavyweight fighter, and he weighed in about 265 pounds, the guy he was fighting, and Akiyama's coming in about 190 or something like that. And Akiyama fought open weight, that's why I really like this guy, and he hasn't had the best of runs since he came to the UFC, and it's made him look pretty bad, even though he's not a shit fighter. And I think they've just given the best fighters every single time that he's fought. I think he was winning the fight against Lieben, and I think he just got caught and subsequently lost. Then Bisping's just like a flashy fighter as such. I'm not the greatest fan of Bisping. I know he's a Brit, or a Cypriot. And Lieben was coming up, and he was almost on the way of getting cut from the UFC when he had a few bad fights. But Akiyama, yeah, he's a great fighter, and Nate Marquardt, I think he's going to be a worthy opponent. To be honest, I always said Nate Marquardt should have fought Michael Bisping to see where it would warrant Michael Bisping for one more fight after that one for a title shot, and I would have had Akiyama fighting Jorge Rivera. And yeah, in this fight, I think let's see, Akiyama, he's going to be, none of these fighters go for the knockout or go for the win. I know Marquardt has very heavy hands, and Akiyama's got a good chin. If it comes to a striking battle, I think Akiyama's got the better striking overall, but on the ground, I think Nate Marquardt has the better ground game. I think he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't really look like a black belt, if you know what I mean. And I think it's a toss-up in the air, this. And I'm going to go with the upset, and I think Akiyama's going to get this win. And I'm going to say by decision, to be honest, because in Nate Marquardt's last fight against Okami, he didn't look good at all, and Okami took that fight from Nate Marquardt because it was his fight to lose, I thought. And yeah, I'm going to go with Akiyama, and I think he's going to win this fight by decision. I think it'll be interesting because Bisping will probably shoot up in the rankings to like 4th in the 185 pound division, and it might warrant him a title shot soon, even though I don't think he deserves it because he hasn't fought no one in the top 5. But yeah, Akiyama's going to get this fight won. And in the heavyweight division, we have Mirko versus Brendan Schaub. I think that Brendan Schaub was lucky in his last fight, because Gonzaga, if he'd stuck with his game plan and actually took Brendan Schaub to the ground, Brendan Schaub would be bumped, because I just don't think Gonzaga doesn't fight to his strengths. He just fights. He wants to stand up with people and bang and knock them out, since he took out Krokop that once. And yeah. Anyways, Mirko Krokop, he didn't impress me in his last fight against Frank Mir. I think Mir didn't even impress me in that fight either. I think they were both pretty shit. Brendan Schaub, he's been coming up and he's been beating all these people, and he's been looking alright, you know what I mean? His boxing's coming along. I haven't really seen much of his ground game, and you know Krokop is not going to take this fight to the ground. And I think this could be interesting, because I think Brendan Schaub might come in with the game plan of taking Krokop to the ground. I know Frank Mir couldn't take him to the ground, but I think Brendan Schaub will probably fight a decent, smart game plan and take Mirko Krokop away from his strengths, because his strength is his striking. I know everyone goes on about his head kick, but when was the last time he actually knocked someone out with a head kick? I think it's about 5 years ago, to be honest. And I'm going to go with Brendan Schaub. I'm going to go with the upset, because I'm assuming that Mirko Krokop will be the favourite for this fight. And I'm going to go with Brendan Schaub, and I think he's going to finish Krokop by a second round, by a knockout. And the only reason I'm going to say that is because when you saw Krokop fight Dos Santos. I know Brendan Schaub's not as good as Dos Santos by a long way, but when you see Crocop get hit a lot, he tends to cower and back away from the fight and not take charge as such. But anyways, I'm going to go with Brendan Schaub, second round TKO. And now onto the main event, which I've been waiting for a long time. Well, not a long time, only about 4 weeks. Anyways, we have Maurício Shogun Rua versus Johnny Bones Jones. A few people have been saying that Jones did not deserve this title shot. Well, out of the people that are out there that warranted the title shot, I think Jones was the person who I would have saw. Well, I would have said one more fight, but there's no one else in the weight class who I think warranted for the title shot. But then if you think back to when Shogun got his title shot against Machida, in the first place I don't think he should have got the title shot because he beat Mark Coleman. I know it was a rematch because the first time Mauricio hurt his leg and Coleman went overboard basically. And then he fought, who else? Chuck Liddell, who came off like 5 losses or 4 losses or something like that. And then I don't think Mark Coleman and Chuck Liddell, beating them two, warrants a title shot. And Shogun got a title shot at the end of the day after that, because before that he lost to Forrest Griffin. Anyways, Johnny Bones Jones, he's basically been walking through every single fighter he has fought, and I don't think it's going to be no different in this fight, because I know Shogun, he keeps on blowing out his knees, and if you see in the Machida fight number 2, he was carrying a little bit of flab around the sides, and he was lucky that he knocked out Machida in the first round, because I think if that fight had gone on and on, Machida would have been the more conditioned fighter, because I think Maurício Shogun Rua was carrying a little bit of weight, extra baggage should I say, and I think Jones is going to be the stronger fighter. I know Shogun is going to have the better ground game, but I think Jones is striking, his overwhelming power, and his striking in general. I think it's just going to be a really, really bad fight for Maurício Shogun Rua, and the only way I can see Jones getting tagged is when Shogun comes in with them few punches that he always runs in at people with, like he did against Machida, and that's how he caught him. But breaking down this fight, I think Jones' striking is a lot better. I think his wrestling is always the Achilles heel of people with BJJ black belts, and I think, yeah, he's going to have the better reach, going to have the better striking. He's new, up and coming, and I'm going to give this fight to Johnny Bones Jones, and I think he's just going to dominate Shogun. But it could be interesting if Shogun uses his leg kicks, because I don't think Jones's legs can take that much punishment, because he hasn't got the thickest legs in the world, and maybe if Shogun strikes him a couple of times in his legs, maybe Jones's chicken legs might just snap or something, but that's wishful thinking. And anyways, I'm going to go with this fight. I'm going to go with Johnny Bones Jones, and I think it's going to be Jones getting this fight to the ground, bit of ground and pound, and then finishing him off with a submission in the second round. I keep going second round, and somewhere in the middle, isn't it really? So no worries. Yeah, just before I go, I'm just going to give this fight card probably a 7 out of 10, 7 to 8 out of 10 on the talent of the people that are on it, because I think the undercard's pretty stacked and it'll be interesting to watch. Don't forget to subscribe, check us out at bellatorgiro.com, and this is me, Runner, signing out from my UFC predictions 128. Peace.